Alright, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to another episode of barSILENCE. My name is Jameson, and I'm your host. barSILENCE is a SuperPod network production that's dedicated to exploring the very best video game music each and every month. If you haven't yet, head over to barsilence.com to find an easy link to subscribe on whatever your favorite podcatcher is. You can also go to superpodnetwork.com to check out an excellent variety of gaming articles, as well as some of the very best podcasts focused on retro gaming nostalgia and other gaming goodness. And if you're looking for the best 24/7 around-the-clock video game music radio station, you should check out 8 Beats Radio. This show plays there live on the first Tuesday of every month, and you can tune in by going to 8beats.co. In this episode, we're going to be listening to the fast-paced, high-energy, trancey and dancey rhythms of the soundtracks to the Geometry Wars series. The first Geometry Wars was originally a bonus minigame within the 2003 release of Project Gotham Racing 2 that was developed by Bizarre Creations for the original Xbox. Hidden in the garage area of the game, there's a stand-up arcade machine labeled Geometry Wars that you can play. This top-down, multi-directional shooter allowed players to control a small claw-shaped ship that could move freely across a rectangular playing field, and the game featured simplistic wireframe graphics reminiscent of classic arcade games like Robotron 2084. And the goal was simple: survive as long as possible and rack up a high score. The game was originally created as a way for the team at Bizarre Creations to test out the Xbox controller while they were making Project Gotham Racing. When they decided to include it as a bonus in the sequel, they weren't really expecting too much of it. There wasn't any music, and there was only one game mode. And despite its bare-bones nature, the gameplay was addictive and fun, and it quickly became incredibly popular. So much so that when the Xbox 360 was released, Bizarre Creations developed a fully featured version of the game for the Xbox Live Arcade called Geometry Wars Retro Evolved. I personally put countless hours into this game with my friends, all circled around the TV, each taking a turn to see who could set the highest score. We even had a whiteboard on the wall where we manually tallied who had the highest score week after week. Retro Evolved was an absolute blast to play, and honestly, for such a simple game, it was the game that I would show off to people when they wanted to try my Xbox 360 for the first time. And a lot of the reason for that was because every playthrough was a dazzling and stunning display of color and cool particle effects as you destroyed waves of different enemies on screen. And of course, this on-screen wonder was complemented by a truly awesome, pulse-pounding song by composer Chris Chudley that was designed to keep you in the zone and help to define the series musically. At the time, GameSpot praised the game's graphics, controls, sound effects, and how easy it was to justify the purchase with the low asking price of 400 Microsoft points, or $5. To make this game even more accessible, there was a free demo that you could get, and if you purchased the game, you had 2 gameplay modes available to you. The main version was called the Evolved mode that challenged players to get the highest scores that they could, starting them off with 3 lives and 3 bombs to take on seemingly endless waves of enemies. The other mode was called Retro, which was the exact minigame from Project Gotham Racing 2, giving players a throwback to the series' origins. By late 2007, Retro Evolved was one of the top 10 downloaded games on Xbox Live, and it sat alongside casual titles like Uno and Texas Hold'em, as well as retro titles like Street Fighter II Hyper Fighting, Contra, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. IGN had even claimed at the time, without Geometry Wars Retro Evolved, Microsoft's Xbox Live Arcade efforts could have fallen flat, and that the game legitimized the service for hardcore gamers, which was a bold claim, but honestly, probably pretty true looking back. In 2008, Bizarre Creations released the sequel, Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2, elevating the series to new heights graphically, as well as through changes to the gameplay. The biggest change to the game was that this time multipliers are no longer earned by killing enemies. Now, when you destroy your foes, they leave behind small orbs on screen for you to collect. This addition to the game created a dangerously risky element to the strategy of collecting them, often at the risk of crashing into other enemies and losing lives. However, it came with the addictive reward of being able to rack up thousands of points incredibly quickly as your multiplier grew. The other additions to Retro Evolved 2 included 6 gameplay modes that expanded on the original game. King played like a version of King of the Hill with protective bubbles that would rapidly shrink, forcing players to escape and head to the next one in order to survive. There was also Sequence Mode that challenges players to survive 20 different levels while specific on changing ways of enemies attack. It also introduced the Pacifism mode that gave gamers a challenge of trying to stay alive with no guns and no bombs, and the only way to score was to pilot away from enemies, making them follow behind you, and then triggering gates that would explode to take them out. The Waves mode forces players to fight off waves of the dart enemy with only 1 life, and the game also brings back the Evolved mode, but this time gives you 4 lives to start with instead of 3. Then of course, there was also my personal favorite mode in the game called Deadline that gives players exactly 3 minutes to survive while hordes of enemies attack you and you try to score as many points as you can. The composer from Retro Evolved, Chris Chudley, returns once again, bringing back their distinctive trance meets techno sound that complements the frenetic and visually intense gameplay of each of these gameplay modes. So for our first block, we're going to start this off big and listen to the 8+ minute banger known as Track 2 from Geometry Wars Retro Evolved. Then we'll listen to the menu theme from Retro Evolved 2 that steps up the soundscapes of the song that's playing underneath us now that comes from the first Retro Evolved. After that, we're going to listen to my favorite song from Retro Evolved 2 that comes from the Deadline mode. I've probably listened to this song thousands of times already in my life, and I honestly can't get enough of this track's awesome trance vibes, killer use of stereo panning, and how it perfectly ramps up the tension in those final moments. We'll follow it with the Evolve theme that excellently remixes the unnamed Track 2 from Retro Evolved. Next, we'll hear the theme from King, back it up with the theme from Pacifism, and then punch up the energy with the sequence theme. Then finally, we'll listen to the thrilling and breaking beats of the Waves theme to end the block. Alright, get ready for a dose of the most exciting tunes from these Xbox Live Arcade originals. I hope you set a high score on whatever you're doing while you listen, and I'll be back after that to talk about the sequel, Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions. After Retro Evolved 2 was released to critical acclaim and sold nearly 600,000 units by 2011, the series disappeared for a while. Bizarre Creations, as I mentioned in the Metropolis Street Racer episode, was purchased by Activision in 2007, and, disappointingly, shut down just 4 years later in 2011. For 3 years, there was no sign of Geometry Wars. But in 2014, Lucid Games, which was founded by former Bizarre Creations employees, developed a true follow-up for the series that was released for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and PCs. This fully loaded follow-up evolves everything from the earlier games and fine-tunes the experience for more graphically powerful systems, giving gamers exactly what they wanted from a next-gen Geometry Wars game. It also, as one can expect from the name, introduces fully 3D graphics to the series with stunning-looking explosions and maps that curve around different shapes like a grid that's being warped by spacetime. Each stage of the game feels like a dynamic hybrid of a Tron-like grid mixed with the modern interpretation of a wireframe-style low-poly object. And your smooth movement across them makes every round feel as incredible as it is visually breathtaking. Now, as for the music in this game, it also saw changes in the composer. Chris Chudley did not return to the series for Dimensions, and instead, Chris Mann steps into the seat with credits to his names on games like Thrillville, Lemmings Touch, Connect Sports, and 2K Drive. This game's soundtrack does an excellent job of mixing genres and features remixes and callbacks to the previous games in the series that perfectly matches this game's neon-soaked visuals. When combined with the new modes of gameplay and online multiplayer, Dimensions received a warm welcome from critics. It landed a perfect score on Destructoid and The Outer Haven, as well as an 8 out of 10 on Polygon and an 80 from Official Xbox Magazine. Despite the praise and the love that was shared online by gamers, it's been over 10 years since Geometry Wars 3 came out. The series is honestly perfect for the pick-up-and-play nature of the Nintendo Switch, and one could easily imagine the potential of what a VR version of this game could be like after playing something like Tetris Effect. Yet, here we are with no follow-up after so long. But who knows, maybe there's still a chance for a revival though. Perhaps after Microsoft's recent acquisition of Activision, there could still be an exciting return to the series if we just get out there and ask for it. Anyhow, for our block of music from Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions, we're going to listen to more of the thumping and pumping rhythms that this series is known for, featuring Chris Mann's take on them, that blends touches of spacey futuristic soundscapes, as well as some techno and dubstep-like influences. First, we're going to start things off with the high-energy main theme, and then follow it with the new take on the Deadline theme. After that, we'll hear the darker and bassier theme for King, and back that one up with the spacey sounds of Pacifism. Then, we'll listen to the theme for Titan, and hear the 80s sounding synths of Reignbow. Finally, we'll hear the Sniper theme, and follow it with the mega energy and zappy lead of the electro house-like banger called Boss Theme to finish the block. Alright, time to get shooting and rack up those high scores, my friends. Enjoy these tunes, and I'll be back after that. Alright, so that's the show. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode about the awesome, high-energy, neon-soaked beats of the Geometry Wars games. If you want to interact with the show and tell me what you think about my selections in this episode, you can follow me on a variety of social media platforms. That includes Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. Following the show in those locations are exactly where you can find great screenshots, artwork, music clips, and various information about the games that are featured in each episode. Check the show notes to follow along on your favorite platform of choice. If you're enjoying this show's selection of incredibly great video game music each month, please consider taking a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the show, because I'd really love to hear what you think. Don't forget, you can go to barSILENCE.com to listen to past shows if you've missed any, and of course, if you're feeling giving, you can always support barSILENCE on Patreon. For already subscribing, I want to thank the members of the Legion of VGM for supporting the show. Zoe, Alusa, and Cameron, I very much appreciate you high-scoring heroes, and I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to join these cool cats and become a member of the Legion of VGM yourself, you can subscribe for as little or as much as you want, and you'll get access to a bonus episode of awesome music each month. Be sure to check the show notes for a link to learn more. I would also like to thank friends of the show and Legion members, Aaron of the excellent video game variety podcast, SuperPod Saga, as well as Professor Tom of the Shujin Academy VGM Club. You can and should check out both of these shows wherever you find your podcast, as well as on TerraPlayer.com. Alright, to wrap up this show, I've got one more track for you. We're going to listen to the Geometry Wars 3 version of Evolved. It's hard to imagine any sequel to these games without its electrifying presence. And Chris Mann's take on this fan favorite is truly fantastic. Anyway, enjoy this final song, and as always, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.